We're into day 3 of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour finals, and I'm continuing my look at the semi-final between Magnus Carlsen and Ding Liren. 1 set all after 2 days. First game of day 3 was drawn. Second game, Carlsen won on the white side of a Najdorf. Now in game 3, the players also reached a Najdorf via a slightly strange move order. We're back in a normal Sicilian now. So Ding Liren with the white pieces. And it's interesting to see that both players are up for a fight here. And Carlsen plays the Najdorf and Ding plays the move that Magnus played in game 2, bishop e3. So bishop e3 has become, over the past 20-25 years, one of the main lines in the Najdorf. And black has quite a big choice here. I mean, really, you can play with either e6 or e5. Those are the main moves. You can also play knight g4, actually. That's also a decent move. And they can lead to radically different positions. In game 2, Ding actually played e5. But here Carlsen played e6, so this can lead into the so-called Scheveningen after, for example, bishop e2 and castles kingside. But Ding plays f3, and with that we go into this typical English attack where white usually storms on the kingside with g4 and h4 and castles queenside. Now, they've played this before, and in that previous game, Carlsen shut things down with h5, but this time he just went straight for queenside counterplay with b5. And b4 is irritating because once the knight is pushed, hasn't got a great square to go to, and black can even push straight away with d5. So a3 played just to hold things up for a little bit. But this can create a little bit of weakness on the queen side that later on could help black to open files. Bishop b7 from Carlsen and g4. So here's another big decision, and it's similar to this on the queen side. Here black has to decide, do I want to just stall g5 for a moment, or do I want to allow this? You could just drop the knight round to the queen side, putting it on b6, for example, playing the other knight here, and try to get your queenside counterplay going like that. And it takes a little bit of time for white to get going. Or you can play as Carlsen did and simply play h6. So it sort of mirrors the other side of the board with a3. The pawn on h6 just holds up g5 for the moment, so it gives the knight some stability, because what black is aiming for is actually to break with d5, and you need the knight on f6 in order to do that. So let's see how things work in practice. So white needs to put the king over here. So queen d2. Carlsen played knight bd7, castles queenside, and rook c8. So this looks all very normal, putting the rook opposite the king on the semi-open file and potentially playing for d5. This is the big idea of this variation. And, well, it goes without saying that this has been seen in quite a lot of games previously. One could play h4 here, but as d4 is coming anyway, which will kind of explode the center, then there's really no need for that. Or h4 could look actually like a wasted move. So instead, Ding played king b1, which is just a tidy move, getting out of the way of the rook and basically preparing for d5. He knows d5 is coming, and in that case, the king is definitely better off just tucked out of the way. So d5, this is the whole point of black's strategy. Of course, the huge problem with playing h6 is that it does become much easier for white to open a file, perhaps with h4. So if black played well, in these kind of standard moves, bishop e7 and castles, that would be suicidal, really, because white would be able to open a file, perhaps with h4 and g5, and it looks absolutely dreadful. But this is the point. Black has managed to get in d5 and breaks in the center. So threatens to take here. So pawn takes, pawn on d5, knight takes d5. Knight takes d5, bishop takes. So this bishop looks pretty good in the center of the board, anchored by the pawn on e6. If this were an endgame, then I would quite like black's position. But with the queens on the board, then there are so many tactical and attacking possibilities that really it's very delicately balanced here. Rook g1 played by Ding looks really sensible, takes the rook away from the bishop's diagonal and perhaps prepares to break open that g-file. So now we can see the potential problem with playing that pawn to h6. Previously we've seen knight e5 in this position, and that might well be a good move. The knight looks at the pawn here and also prepares to come in to c4. But Carlsen had a big think here, and it was clear that he wasn't really familiar with the position. He's basically got everything right so far. His play has been really logical, but certainly not part of his preparation, let's put it like that. I wouldn't count him as a Najdorf expert. Bishop c5, so he's developing. Well, can't be bad. And now f4. So things are getting critical. White can potentially play f5 to undermine the bishop's position, and you never know about g5 sometimes too. And this bishop, well, that's just doing fine on f1. You don't need to develop it yet. These pawn pushes are, well, far more pressing concern for both colours. So if castle's here, then g5 already looks incredibly strong. So knight f6 from Carlsen, which is provocative, but the knight does have a square to land on e4. Bishop d3. So starts to cover e4 and also protects c2. So bishop d3 certainly doesn't look bad, and points at the king side as well. And here Carlsen played queen c7, which is certainly reasonable, taking the queen away from white's firepower on the d file. Instinctively, I would want to play queen b6 here, but white has a really interesting possibility which shows the kind of tactical nature of this position, or the possibilities that lie behind a lot of these moves. So white can play b4 here. Now, just to be clear, this did not happen. This would obviously lose the queen in age-old style, and you don't want to give up your two bishops. But where does the bishop go? If it comes back to d6, then knight takes e6 with a discovered attack. If the bishop goes back to e7, then knight f5 looks pretty awful, discovered attack here and here. So do you really want to go back to f8? Dreadful. I mean, white could probably just aim for the king here. So anyway, queen c7 was played. I just thought that was an interesting idea. Queen c7. Queen e1 from Ding. So that starts to look at the king, and you never know, that queen might find its way to the king side as well. Knight e4. So that's preempting g5, but feels a bit out on a limb here. And there is a tactic that white has here. Now Ding, I'm sure that Ding considered this. He could play bishop takes e4 and then take on e6. Now this leads to a load of exchanges basically. Black has to take, white takes on c5, and now if queen takes bishop on e4. So black gives up the bishop, then takes here, and king b1. So, I mean, that sequence was completely forced. And here you can see that black has a weak pawn on e6, which can be defended. But there's no doubt that white is better in this position. I mean, perhaps with best play, black can hold this, but, you know, this looks pleasant for white. Let's put it like that. But Ding didn't want to sell his position short. He played h4, so preparing the pawn storm on the king side. And, well, you'd have to be very brave to castle, but it might actually be the best move here, incredibly. And, you know, try to withstand this assault, you know, try and close the position. Carlsen played queen b7. It's a mistake. Here, Ding had a very attractive possibility. Basically, here, if white plays knight b3, that just kind of clears the center of pieces. For example, bishop takes, queen takes. And now black's king can't hang around for too much longer because white, having coordinated beautifully, is simply ready to push. And it doesn't matter whether the king is on e8 or g8. White is on his way here. Castles, f5, and this is a lot of fun. And g5 or potentially f6 and g5 are coming soon. So knight b3 would have given Ding an excellent position. But instead, running short of time, he played c3. It's one of those kind of automatic moves which looks safe, but actually simply allowed a tactic. Bishop takes a3. We've seen it, well, so many times in this kind of position. And yes, that pawn on a3 finally gave black something to bite on in this position. I mean, I suspect that Ding was trying to shut down this possibility, b4, but in so doing, he's allowed something else. Bishop takes a3. Probably Ding should take this. I think this is still a fairly unclear. Now, I think black is doing well here, but I think it's white's best chance. Instead, after bishop takes a3, Ding played f5, so he just wants to find counterplay on the other side of the board. And after all, black's king is still in the middle. Carlsen could move the bishop back here, but instead he just went for it, b4, and this is so typical of the way that players like Carlsen, Dubov, Nakamura and Nepo as well have been playing in these online rapid tournaments. It's all about the initiative. You know, you don't hesitate for a moment. No backing down. Carlsen just continues with b4 to try and rip open the king. And, well, if that bishop is taken, then of course the b file is going to open. I mean, I think there are lots of ways to proceed there. So Ding tried to close it with c4. And again, bishop takes c4 possible, but Carlsen, well, he was in the flow now. Knight c3 check. Again, taking allows the b file to open, and that's catastrophic. King a1. It's funny. Carlsen now has 3 minor pieces on prise. Okay, he made sure one of them was safe with bishop takes c4, but still got to be careful. F takes a6. F takes e6. Time to evacuate. Castling on move 24. Definitely the best move. And here, well, white is just too slow to play g5. Ding exchanged on c4 and played rook d2. So he's trying to kind of shore things up. And still, you know, he has the hope that he might be able to take one of these pieces safely. Well, here Carlsen decided to just clear the pawn front in front of the king. King takes b2, and now b3. Could play knight a4 check first, but b3 is also pretty good. So he just wants to play check and keep going with the b pawn, for example. Ding took on f7, queen takes f7. And here, well, the only way for white to keep going was rook f2, but Ding was down to his final few seconds and he blundered. Very difficult position indeed. Knight takes b3, and that allowed rook b4, and that is game over. White has no way of protecting that knight on b3, and obviously black just crashes through, and it's mate in a couple of moves basically. Wow, what a game. That's the reason I love the Najdorf. You so often get these really unbalanced positions where the game can turn on one move. Fascinating stuff. And yeah, great to see a few Najdorfs in this match. So Carlsen won day 3, set 3. So he's 2-1 ahead. It's best of 5 though. So Ding is still in the match. In the other semi-final, Nakamura, well, I would say coasted past Daniel Dubov, and he's made it 3-0. He just blanked out Dubov. So Nakamura is through to the final. Will he face Carlsen or Ding? Well, we'll see over the next couple of days. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do consider supporting us via PayPal or Patreon. Thanks for watching.